Board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Troop, Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Bosley, Alderman Moore, Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderwoman Triplett, Alderwoman Young, Alderman Conway, Alderman Ortman, Alderman Vollmer, Alderman Villa, Alderman Arnowitz, Alderman Wessels, Alderwoman Howard, Alderwoman Florida, Alderwoman Behringer, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Kennedy, Alderwoman Davis, Alderman Schmid, Alderman French, Alderman Boyd, Alderman Vaccaro, Alderman Ogilvie, Alderman Cone, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, President Reed.
Here.
Alderwoman Flowers, Alderman Moore, Alderman Conway, Alderman Villa, Alderwoman Howard, Alderman Rhodey, Alderman Williamson, Alderman Carter, Alderwoman Cruzen, 20 present.
Quorum being present, I'll ask everyone in the chambers and the galleries who's able to stand to please rise for prayer. Giving all honor to God, Almighty God, source of all authority, we humbly ask guidance in our deliberations and wisdom in our conclusions. Amen. We dispense with line item 3, introduction of honored guests. Any introduction of honored guests? Alderman from the 9th.
Mr. President, you can always look this way.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I'd like to have for my honored guest today Ronnie Auer, who's sitting over here, and then I have the pleasure of having a student that actually lives in my ward that goes to WashU, Lindsay Forsythe. She will be my guest today, and she'll be observing us, so be careful what you say.
Yeah, welcome, Lindsay. Alderwoman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I have as my guest, as I do every week, Anthony Lancia with AGC, but I have a very special guest today with me, which is my son Connor, who couldn't be with us last week. And he's leaving for Russia this weekend, and so he'll be gone. He's in his 3rd year of Russian.
Wow, congratulations, Connor. Alderman from the 12th.
Members of the board, I'd like to introduce as my special guest today, Tim Ogle, who's one of my constituents and also a special assistant to Congressman Carnahan.
Welcome, Tim. Any further introductions? Any further introductions? We also have a birthday today. Happy birthday, Alderwoman. Alderman from the 10th, Alderman from the 7th. Did you have something? Alderman from the 10th, anything to wrap us up? Alderman from the 10th, anything to wrap us up? Would you leave him alone, Alderman from the 4th?
I wasn't this injured. You don't have to do this to me. I can stand up. No, there's no one here for me to introduce, but today is June 15th, which is National Go Fly a Kite Day, which I suggest we all go do right now. Thank you.
Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on approval of the minutes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to approve the minutes of the June 1st meeting.
Moved by Alderman from the 13th, seconded by Alderman from the 25th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in sections A, B, and C of the agenda and have been placed in all aldermen's mailboxes.
We'll dispense with line item 7. Would anyone like to take any bills off of any of our informal calendars? Would anyone like to take any bills off any of our informal calendars? Dispense with line items 8 through 10. First reading of board bills.
Board Bill 98, sponsored by Alderwoman Triplett, an ordinance authorizing the execution of an intergovernmental cooperation agreement between the city and 1601 South Jefferson Community Improvement District containing a severability clause. Board Bill 99, sponsored by Alderman Boyd, an ordinance establishing a four-way stop site for all traffic approaching the intersection of Penrose and Darby, containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of our first reading.
Reference to committee.
To the Ways and Means Committee, Board Bill 98, and to the Streets Committee, Board Bill 99. That's the extent of reference to committees.
Second reading.
The following board bills were reported out of the Ways and Means Committee. Board Bill 1, Committee Substitute, sponsored by President Reed and Alderwoman Cruzen. The budget for fiscal year July 1st, 2012 through June the 30th, 2013. Board Bill 94, sponsored by President Reed and Alderwoman Cruzen, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing a supplemental appropriation, amending Ordinance 68882, the city's annual operating plan for fiscal year 2011 through 2012, appropriating and setting apart projected excess general fund revenues to address certain expenditures in the general fund for the current fiscal year in the amount of $13,550,000, containing an emergency clause. Following board bills were reported out of the Public Safety Committee. Board Bill 12, Committee Substitute as amended, sponsored by Aldermen and Alderwomen Schmid, Cruzen, Ortman, Cone, Conway, Howard, Florida, and Behringer. An ordinance establishing the firefighters' retirement plan, providing retirement, disability, and death benefits for fighters and their covered dependents, including severability and effective date clauses and provisions pertaining to the repeal of Chapter 4.18 of the Revised Code. Board Bill 32, sponsored by Alderman Ogilvy, Carter, French, Cone, and Boyd, an ordinance which amends Ordinance 68536 to clarify that premises where motor vehicle service stations exist are limited to 5% package license and containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 52, sponsored by Alderman Ortman, Carter, French, Schmid, and Cone, an ordinance pertaining to sun screening devices applied to the windshield or windows of motor vehicles, containing a penalty, severability, and emergency clause. Following board bills were reported out of the Streets Committee. Board Bill 54, sponsored by Alderman French, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Street Commissioner to take all necessary actions to honorarily designate the 3800 block of Clarence as Reverend Robert D. Strong Sr. Avenue. Board Bill 56, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, an ordinance authorizing and directing the Street Commissioner to take all necessary actions to honorarily designate the 1500 block of Penrose as Pastor Emeritus Charlie Dooley Avenue. Following board bill was reported out of Transportation and Commerce Committee. Board Bill 87, sponsored by Alderman Kennedy, an ordinance recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, ratifying and adopting the actions of the mayor and the comptroller, the grant agreement for a maximum federal obligation of $12,763,863 for the reimbursement of direct costs associated with the rehabilitation of runway 12R 30L, containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of our second reading.
Dispense with line item 14, perfection consent.
Board Bill 9, sponsored by Alderman Bosley, and an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from C, multiple family dwelling district, and G, local commercial and office district, to the F, neighborhood commercial district only in City Block 5217 for properties on Glasgow and Natural Bridge, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 17, sponsored by Alderwoman Hubbard, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from D, multiple family dwelling district, to the F, neighborhood commercial district in City Block 628 for properties on North 14th and North 13th Streets, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 19, sponsored by Alderman Ogilvy, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from A, single family dwelling district, and F, neighborhood commercial district, to the F, neighborhood commercial district only in City Block 5100 for 7201 through 03 Piccadilly, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 36, sponsored by Alderwoman Davis, an ordinance amending Ordinance 66494, 66752, and 67879, authorizing the execution of a third amendment to the redevelopment agreement by and between the city and Adler, containing a severability clause. Board Bill 48, sponsored by Alderman Ortman, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from F Neighborhood Commercial District to the C Multiple Family Dwelling District in City Block 1971 for 2900 through 08 Indiana, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 49, sponsored by Alderman Villa, an ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission to change the zoning of property from K Unrestricted District and both K Unrestricted District and J Industrial District to the J Industrial District only in city blocks 3248, 3259, and 3266 for 316 East Catalan, 8718 South Broadway, and 416 East Catalan, containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of perfection consent.
Alderman from the 13th, you recognize on the motion for the perfection consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members of the board, I move for perfection of the aforementioned bills on the consent calendar.
Moved by the Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 26th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 11, sponsored by Alderman Schmidt, an ordinance pertaining to the Fireman's Retirement System, repealing Section 6 of Ordinance 49623 and enacting in lieu thereof a new section pertaining to the jurisdiction and authority of the trustees of the Fireman's Retirement System, containing an emergency clause.
Alderman from the 20th, you recognize on the perfection of Board Bill number 11.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for perfection of Board Bill 11.
Moved by the Alderman from the 20th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th. Alderman from the 20th, please proceed.
Mr. President, members of the board, I move for adoption of Board Bill 11, floor substitute for discussion purposes.
Well,
it is on all members' desks.
For the introduction of floor substitute.
Yes.
So you want to move for the introduction of floor substitute?
I move for the introduction of floor substitute for Board Bill 11.
Moved by the Alderman from the 20th. Entertain the second on that motion. Seconded by the Alderman from the 25th. Alderman from the 20th, please proceed.
Mr. President, members of the board, this is the bill that speaks to the fiduciary duties of the trustees and indicates that they do not have what are known as set lore duties. Those are the plan designers. I would, because it's on everyone's desk, make sure that everyone knows what the changes are on the floor substitute. On page 1 at line 15, it changes the numbers to bring them up to date so that it's 52% as opposed to I'm sorry, 529% as opposed to the earlier number. There's the new numbers in terms of what the costs are to the city this year. Also on line 19, page 1, we've added the line to indicate that we want to make sure that we're assuring that the trustees do not cause the city to incur additional and unnecessary expenses as a result of going on to page 2, line 1, conduct that exceeds the intended scope of their authority. On page 3, at the very bottom, that should be paragraph 6 because paragraph 6 comes after paragraph 5. And then on page 4, line 15, we've taken out what appeared to me at least to be somewhat threatening language that they would be liable for damages and expense and so forth. That lines 15 and 17 are out of this floor substitute. And the last page, beginning on line 1, we've added over to line 2 to prevent excessive expenditures and liabilities of the city government. And then there was at the very bottom, the reason why that's marked on line 6 and 7 is to make sure that some lines were brought up there. That's the extent of it, and I would renew my motion.
All right, any discussion? Any discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we introduce floor substitute for Board Bill number 11. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of Board Bills for perfection.
Where did the Alderman from the 20th go? The Alderman from the 20th, are you gonna move to perfect this board, the floor substitute now?
Mr. President, members of the board, I move to perfect floor substitute for Board Bill 11.
Moved by the Alderman from the 20th, seconded by the Alderman from the 9th. Any further discussion? It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of board bills for perfection.
We'll dispense with line items 17 through 19, courtesy resolutions. I move for adoption of our courtesy resolution calendar and entertainment. Seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. First reading resolutions.
Resolution 63, sponsored by Alderwoman Young, and the Board of Aldermen approves the Soulard Special Business District budget for 2012.
Sorry, I'm having real problems with my glasses this morning. I think I got syrup on them or something. I can't see a thing. Alderman from the 7th, you're recognized on the first reading resolution number 63.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask for unanimous consent on Resolution 63.
Hearing no objection, Alderwoman, please proceed.
I would move for adoption of the annual budget for the Soulard Special Business District.
Moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 20th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of first reading of resolutions.
We'll dispense with line item number 22, miscellaneous unfinished business.
We have none.
Announcements.
Monday, Public Employees Committee meeting, 10 a.m. in the Leisure Room. Friday, full board meeting, 10 a.m. in the chambers. That's the extent of my announcements.
There we go. Any further announcements? Alderman from 27th.
Thank you, Mr. President. Saturday the 16th, 27th Ward would have its monthly meeting at 10 a.m. at Bishop Willie Ellis Conference Center at 5939 Goodfellow. This Saturday, tomorrow, we will have the American Heart Association, testing individuals on their CPR. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 25th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I just wanted to make an announcement this morning. On my way into the office, I stumbled across a couple mementos of the youth from my neighborhood. And as you can see, I just want to remind folks that when young people don't have constructive things to do with their time, they turn to destructive behavior. And that can lead to some very large public safety concerns when you don't have stop signs at intersections where they belong. So I just encourage you all to continue supporting our recreation programs and any type of program that supports young people in this city so that we can give them something constructive to do with their time so that we don't have to deal with these types of menacing issues in the future. Thank you.
Alderman from the 18th.
Good morning, Mr. President, members of the board, but I sure wish we'd get this nice of signs in the 8th Ward.
Yeah, those are I think the Alderman from the 25th probably took them down right when they got up.
And this Sunday is Father's Day, and I would like to wish all of the fathers here in this room and throughout the St. Louis City, happy Father's Day, and we appreciate everything that you do for us. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further announcements? Wait a minute. Got to get to where I can see. Alderman from the 16th.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I just want to remind people that tomorrow is the Epilepsy 5K Run, Seize the Day. Alderman Cohn is running it with me. Any other alderman who'd like to do a 5K tomorrow morning at 7:30 a.m., we invite you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Alderman from the 19th.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to start off with, this is National Friends Week. And for those of you who have no private time like I don't have anymore, I miss my friends. I want to say hi to my friends. And I miss my bid whist games and all of that. So those friends that you haven't been socializing with and picking up the phone to call them, call your friend this week. It's National Friends Week. I wanted to give a congratulations and a shout out to the Ethical Society of Police, to Fire for a successful Skate King fundraiser for Backstoppers, and now I know one of my colleagues, she can really roll it, okay? But they have another event. This is an eventful weekend for them. They're having their all-white fundraiser at the Loft tonight at 7 p.m. It's only $10, and the best way to advertise this is to tell all those young ladies that are looking for that special mate, we got St. Louis Finest going to be there. So they need to show up and support this. This is a very important cause. And then Saturday, they're having their bikers ride. It starts at Skate King, and it's going to Forest Park. I asked somebody to adopt me so I can ride. I miss riding my motorcycles. Also, I wanted to say happy birthday to one of our most, what I consider to be our movie star now, and that's Robbie Montgomery. As Sweetie Pie's tomorrow is her birthday. She's another Gemini, too. And we also have the Fatherhood Support Walk tomorrow at Tower Grove Park. Starts at 7 a.m. And we want to make sure that we have an opportunity to support them. The program is great. They had a wonderful fundraiser last night at the Washington Loft Gala. And I wanted to welcome the Metro Theater Company to Grand Center. So they should be opening in August. We'll have some more theater opportunities there, and I think that they're a great, great group that supports our youth as well. I want you to listen to me on Tuesday at 3:30 on WGNU. I'll be on there with Cheryl Jones, and most of you all know her. She's a supporter of youth. She has a great urban program for young ladies, and so I'm going to talk with her about a lot of things that we could do better to help our youth. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further announcements? Any further? Alderman from the 4th.
Good morning, Mr. President and members of the board. Like Shane Cone in his ward, I passed through my neighborhood this morning and I found two mementos. These raggedy buildings that are still in my ward and they haven't been taken care of yet. And that shows that a sign of change is not coming in the 4th ward, and we want to be just like the balance of the community, balance of the city of St. Louis, and we want this stopped in the city of St. Louis. In our community, this is a crime against the city. So I want you to know this. I didn't find no stop signs. I found whole buildings that was dilapidated. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Thank you. Alderman from the 15th, I can see you now.
Thank
I lost the Alderman from the 20th earlier when he moved and I didn't have my glasses. I can't make up anything past that front row.
You're fine. Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. I'd like to take the time to congratulate Tower Grove Heights Neighborhood Association. They're celebrating their 25th anniversary as a neighborhood association this weekend. And they're having a big event on Saturday, right in the heart of the neighborhood. So thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you, Alderman. Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Alderman from the 13th, you're recognized on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to excuse the Alderman from the 17th Ward due to necessary.
Alderman from the 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 11th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Alderman from 13th, you're recognized on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to adjourn the meeting until Friday, 10 a.m., June 22nd.
Moved by the Alderman from 13th, seconded by the Alderman from the 11th. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? We stand adjourned.